Welcome to Ridgewood Talks. Through this podcast, we will be introducing you to some of the leaders and legends in our village. We'll keep you updated about fascinating local events. We'll dig into the town's hot topics and so much more. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeannie Johnson, the founder of Ridgewood Talks and Ridgewood Walks. The goal of these initiatives is to create a kinder, more connected, and more vibrant community. I'm thrilled to be hosting this podcast with my good friend and all-around wonderful guy, Jordan Kaufman. We look forward to meeting with you weekly and hearing your thoughts on who and what you'd like to learn about in our beautiful hometown. For now, be kind, do good, and enjoy this episode. Here we go. Hey listeners, welcome back to Ridgewood Talks. As you know, our little hyper-local podcast is dedicated to discussing issues that impact the residents of Ridgewood. One of the most popular aspects of our show is our interviews with political candidates, and this year's election is especially important. While national politics often grab our attention, it's crucial to remember how local elections shape our daily lives. And that's why Ridgewood Talks is sitting down with candidates running for our Village Council and Board of Education. We extended an invitation to every candidate to share their platform with you, our listeners, and everyone accepted except Village Council candidate Hungju Kwok. We reached out to her through her Board of Education email, the 2 emails listed on her website, and her social media platforms, and received no response. The questions we're asking the candidates came directly from you, our audience, and the candidates did not receive the questions in advance. So let's get started. Today's guest is Deputy Mayor Pamela Perron. She has served on the Village Council since 2020. In that role, she is also the liaison to the Planning Board, Green Ridgewood, the Central Business District Advisory Committee, and the Open Space Committee. Born and raised in Ridgewood, Pamela has deep community roots fueling her commitment to making the village a better place to live, work, and play. As a Ridgewood High School graduate, Pam is passionate not only about the current generation of residents, but those who will live in the village decades from now. She was a past vice president of the League of Women Voters of Ridgewood and founded the League's Observer Corps, where observers attended public meetings, took notes, and reported back to the League, often sharing summaries of the proceedings with the broader community. This was when her curiosity for elected office was born, and she eventually decided to run for Village Council after a lengthy career in public service. She is a former assistant U.S. attorney, and during her time as a federal litigator, she tried many cases in the U.S. District Court. She is best known for her focus on environmental sustainability, working on initiatives like improving stormwater management and planting new trees to enhance Ridgewood's green spaces. She has degrees in political science from Columbia University and a law degree from Tulane University. Pam has been married to her husband, Chuck Jennings, for 33 years and 1 day, and they have 3 grown children. They are delighted to say that everyone in the family is a proud product of the Ridgewood Public School System. So welcome back, Pam. You've been on this show multiple times, once as a candidate and once to explain the Ridgewood Water Initiatives. And we've spoken here a few other times to discuss issues that affect our village. So thank you again for being here.
I appreciate your thorough and kind introduction, Jeannie.
It was a good one. Went through a lot of great things. And obviously, Pam, we know each other well from our work on the CBDAC and some of the things we did there. So thanks so much for coming on.
I might just jump in real quick to have you expound on that Observer Corps initiative that you spearheaded. Did that spark your desire to hire a public information officer?
Yes, there were many reasons why we needed a public information officer. As I got more involved in the municipal issues, we needed a better website, we needed more email notices, we needed better graphics. The more I used the system, the more I realized it needed to be updated and to have a spokesperson.
I am very appreciative of the information that is flowing from the village council and the village manager, all of the village departments. It's so gratifying to know what's happening. So thank you for spearheading that.
That's really important. People don't like to be surprised. They would rather be in the know.
Absolutely. As I said, we have a number of questions from our audience. I'm going to start off in a rapid fire way. First of all, what is one issue that you look back on and say, oh, I was totally wrong? And it's okay if there isn't one.
I can't think of one.
That's fine.
So taking the other side, Pam, when you look back at your term, what is one accomplishment that you are most proud of?
I think bringing in the Columbia University Graduate School, because the School of International Public Affairs came up with a map for us, a game plan as to how to reduce our carbon footprint and how to reduce flooding. They worked here for a full semester. I think it was 13 graduate students, and we got such great input from them. It really has helped us focus. And we are at Green Ridgewood trying to implement recommendations from the master plan, the 2022 master plan that the village adopted. And this really helps us get there. So I would say that's the most useful thing that we have done. But I'm also proud of some of the really small things, like the rain barrel initiative that we launched last week. Any resident can go to Backyard Living and look at the two models of rain barrels that they have for sale. Green Ridgewood is funding a discount so that it's more affordable for our residents. And this helps with water conservation so that you have some water for your flower beds in a drought. And it helps a little bit with stormwater runoff as well. So that's a really nice initiative. Also, I like to be the cipher for residents. I want to hear what they have to offer in terms of suggestions and flat out complaints. You see a pothole, tell me about it. My job is to get it to the village manager. And when I've done that, it's really interesting if I take a picture downtown and say, hey, look at this corroded sign. And a week later, there's a new sign. So I love the responsiveness of that. There was a merchant who was complaining about a lack of accessible parking spaces for his disabled customers. And I was able to get the police department to lay out a new accessible parking spot in the Prospect lot. So I felt really good for having done that for the merchant and his customers, and really for the whole town, because anybody who's disabled can use that parking spot.
So 2 points on that. Number one, I want our listeners to understand that we are the eyes and ears of the village council and the police department and basically the village manager. So whenever we see something that needs to be fixed or something that can make our community a little bit better, please, by all means, let these people know, because as Pam said, they're very responsive. So Pam, the second part of that is, so Pam, how can people reach you?
Call my cell phone number, 201-655-8427. And also on my email, my village email, which is pperron@ridgewoodnj.net. And I try to respond promptly. I also check my Facebook page, but better with email and phone calls.
Yeah, some of what you mentioned there kind of leads to one of the next questions, which is, how do you interpret the role of a village council member? And this is also helpful for some of our listeners who maybe don't understand all the intricacies of how the town works.
Yes, the village council is composed of 5 elected council members. We are all equal and we are liaisons. We have a certain portfolio. As Jeannie mentioned in her introduction, I go to all the meetings of my committees. I am the go-between. I facilitate their meetings. I help them present their advice to the full council. And we are there for the residents to voice their opinions and hopefully come up with solutions for any problems that arise. And we pass those along to the village manager and to the department heads. We are not responsible for the employees. We cannot tell employees what to do. That is simply not our job. Nor, by the way, can we fix a parking ticket. We can't do
That's
anything
good to know.
about parking tickets.
Like
Sorry.
if anybody's listening to this and they want to bribe our village council members, that ain't going to happen. So Pam, can you tell us how our mayor is selected? Because we don't vote for the mayor. So how does that come about?
Right. Okay. Our election happens November 5th, and on January 1st, the new council members are brought in. At that point, we have a reorganization meeting, and that's where we meet in an executive session that is a closed session. The five of us decide who will be the lawyer for the village, who will be the village manager, who will be other contract positions, who will be the prosecutor for the village and the public defender. We make those kinds of decisions. We also decide who will be the mayor and the deputy mayor. And sometimes there's no issue about that, and sometimes it's hard fought. So that's how it's done. Our closed sessions are exactly that, closed. We are not permitted to tell the public or distribute anything about what goes on in those sessions. The idea is to keep our deliberations frank and fruitful.
So let's go into some of the committees that you are the liaison for. I know that, Jordan and I are very involved in the Central Business District Advisory Committee. So I want to know, what responsibility does the council have for the Central Business District?
We don't have direct responsibility. We make policy decisions and we give direction to the village manager. So we do not control the commerce there in any way other than to issue permits for, say, events that happen downtown, the parade, that kind of thing. The parade, by the way, is a private enterprise. So there are permits that have to be issued for things like that. And we clean the streets, empty the garbage cans, make sure the paving is done. This year, we removed lead service lines for drinking water and replaced them with more modern stuff. And then there's safety. Public safety. We provide police and fire. And so our employees are downtown all the time. There's always police presence. There's always fire monitoring, inspection of buildings, that sort of thing. So it's mostly regulatory, safety, and infrastructure that the village is responsible for.
I know that you have spearheaded something that will support business owners. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think you're alluding to the Special Improvement District, which is allowed by state statute. And many towns like Princeton, Montclair, Summit have special improvement districts. And so as a spin-off from the Central Business District Advisory Committee, we now have a steering committee that's conducting a feasibility study to see if that's what Ridgewood needs too. I think from a resident's point of view, if you've lived here since, say, 2000, you've noticed a change. The stores are not always filled. They are struggling since the recession in 2008, since the advent of Amazon and online shopping, and then, of course, COVID. So the old model is not necessarily working for our downtown. And that's why we're exploring whether a special improvement district would help. And that is basically where the landlords agree to pay a special assessment collected by the village. And then they decide also what they will do with that money. How will they help the commerce in town? That's their decision. It is up to them to decide their destiny and use those funds in a way that they see fit, whether it's to change lighting downtown, whether it's to bring in musicians or to clean the storefronts or to hire a snow removal company for the sidewalks. That is up to property owners and their tenants to decide what they need. The village's only involvement is once a year to approve their budget. That's sort of a collaboration that is unique, and it sort of softens the edges of hard capitalism. Let me put it that way. So that's what we are exploring.
So in that vein, I want to touch on some of the questions that our listeners have sent in to us. And I have to be fully transparent here. Pam and I are working together on a couple of things. And that is simply because when I opened up the idea of possibly renovating the pedestrian tunnel, I was told by the village engineer that I needed to have a council person to partner with. And I don't know, there's probably some professional words that I'm missing there, but so I chose to work with Pam. Because she worked so closely with us when we were putting together the pedestrian plaza during COVID and all of the concerts in the park. And Pam also, full transparency here, Pam was one of the founding members of the Oktoberfest, of which we just celebrated the 5th annual Oktoberfest on the West Village. So Pam, with that, let's talk about some of the things that we have planned to generate foot traffic in the Central Business District.
So the pedestrian tunnel is, well, let me go back a bit. Jeannie is a regular guest at the Central Business District Advisory Committee meetings, and her enthusiasm for public artwork is infectious. And the pedestrian tunnel, if you've walked through it recently, definitely needs some maintenance, love, and attention. It also is quite an opportunity. And so the offshoot group is the artistic committee, and they have come up with wonderful ideas for the pedestrian tunnel and beyond. There are other areas in the downtown where artwork would be so enlivening, and that includes the Hall of Fame sidewalk. And I'm very excited about all these artistic endeavors, but because the pedestrian tunnel is a historic site, we have to work through the State Historic Preservation Office. And the village has hired Connolly and Hickey, the company that designed the redo of our train station a couple of decades ago. They have great taste, I think. And so they are coming up with a report as to what needs to be done. There have been accidents where cars have run into our historic structures, and they really need to be renovated. And then in the tunnel itself, it needs special treatment because of the walls that are peeling, that sort of thing. But we don't have a final artistic design for it. But over the next 2 years, we have got a plan for funding, and it's all very exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. So did I leave anything out, Jeannie?
No, you didn't. So I'm just going to jump in real quickly, and I want to encourage listeners to be in touch with either Pam or myself. You can go through ridgewoodtalks@gmail, or you can write us an email at ridgewoodmuralproject@gmail.com. If you want to get involved with this, we need people who are artists who can help us design these initiatives. And we also need people who are really good at fundraising. We have a volunteer form that we would like people to complete, and we will review that, but all hands on deck. Many hands make light work, as they say. So we want everyone in the community involved, people who have formed this community to the beautiful place that it is. And then we want also people who will adopt what we've worked so hard to achieve. We want you all to be part of this process. So as we said, there will be a sidewalk Hall of Fame, and we are putting in a pilot tile in the coming weeks, which will be in front of the clock on Oak Street, so you can see a little bit of what these sidewalk Hall of Fame will look. We will have celebrities that were born and raised here in Ridgewood represented on these tiles in our sidewalk. So it'll be kind of like a little map to walk through our town to find out who is from here, who grew up here, whatever. And then we're also going to be putting a mosaic in the pedestrian tunnel, and we are going to paint a beautiful mural under the trestle, under the train trestle. And Pam, you've worked really hard with New Jersey Transit to get that area all cleaned out so we can paint it and make it a more inviting space for pedestrians and for the village as a whole. I also want to say that Rossi Paint Stores and Benjamin Moore is donating the paint for all of this. So it's a really exciting initiative. And as Pam said, it's several years down the road, but we are putting in all the work right now to get that accomplished. So I'm just going to jump now into the other piece of it. let's go into the Performing Arts Center. We had another candidate speak at length about that. So if you want to just put in your 2 cents, please go for it.
Well, as you know, the Warner Theater has gone out of business, and that property, the owners would love to have a performing arts center there, just as the residents in Ridgewood would love to have a performing arts center there. The problem is, who can really manage that? Who would the best tenant be? And there is exploration going on about what kind of programming there should be and fundraising, that sort of thing. The Guild has been very active in bringing people together, be it the new players at the high school or Parlance that performs at Westside Presbyterian Church. There are many arts groups that are interested in this idea. And to bring them together would be great. That property probably needs $10 million worth of renovation. So it's a big lift, but it's an exciting proposition. I think it would be great for Ridgewood. And Jeannie, thank you for coming up with the idea of selling the seats from the old movie theater. That was really fun. We made a little money for one of Jeannie's other endeavors, which is the Historical Society. And I was glad to be part of that.
Thanks for helping us with that, Pam. And now, since we're in the Central Business District, let's talk about the town garage. What can you tell us about the town garage, and what would you like to see there?
Great question. For decades, that property right next to Ben and Jerry's on Franklin has been not only empty, but derelict. And my fear is that when buildings go to seed, it becomes contagious. And I really wanted to see that property better taken care of. Previous village councils have tried to make that into an assisted living or to a parking deck or to multi-use building, and proposal after proposal fell through. And that was disappointing for them. But we, in this present council, finally got it together. We were able to buy the property for a reasonable price, under $2 million, and to get the sellers to clean up the property instead of us the village being burdened with that job to remove the contamination in the soil. So I think very soon we are going to be taking down that building. We could not think of a good use for the building, and therefore we are demolishing it probably before Christmas time. I'm very excited about this. This is one of the things I'm most proud of so far, and I would like to use it as a park. Since the multifamily housing developments have come in downtown, people need more open space. Yes, we do have Van Ness Square, but it takes a beating. It is so overused. We do need more open space downtown for people to recreate, relax, a passive kind of park. Obviously, not a ball field, but something where kids can play on a swing set, or people can buy a sandwich and come sit at a picnic table and have their lunch. Passive recreation would be really lovely in that site. And I could see perhaps adding to the site with the village's employee parking, which is right next door. Now that we have a new garage on Hudson Street, perhaps we could use that extra square of property, put the two lots together, and make a larger park. So I think it will take probably a couple of years to get to the point where we can make a final decision on the use of that property, because the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, will have to give a final approval to the contamination cleanup, and that's going to take several months. So in the meantime, we're thinking about what we can do with it.
Is it possible for residents to chime in and sort of do a survey of what residents would like to see there? Because personally, I would like to see something go there that could generate a little bit of revenue for the village. I know that a park is great, but we have Van Ness 3 blocks away. So I'm thinking something else there. I don't know what though.
Well, what the literature suggests in the open space stuff that I read is that when you have open space, it increases the value of the surrounding properties. And with that, we would be generating more tax revenue for the village. On the flip side, If you chase ratables, well, you kind of end up, maybe I shouldn't say this, but you end up looking like Paramus. And I would rather not see that happen in Ridgewood. It would really, if we had a park, we would preserve the small town feel of Ridgewood in a way that's in keeping with our master plan. So I know there are other people, including you, Jeannie, who would like to see something that generates revenue. But I think a park, certainly in the first instance, is what we would go for. In the next year or two, it will be planted with grass. So that's where we are at the moment.
So just to reiterate my question, is there a chance for residents to jump in and give their opinion about it? Or is it just
Oh, I'm
strictly?
sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't answer that question. My bad. We will make sure that there is a forum or a survey. I'm not quite sure what form the outreach would take, but we will take into account residents' input and the merchants' input as well. CBDAC will be key for that kind of corralling opinions.
So, Pam, we've talked about a number of issues, and I think, residents probably don't recognize all of the issues that are impacting the town at one time. But what do you think is the most pressing issue that needs to, move up in people's minds and needs to be addressed?
Well, I think the most pressing and expensive issue is PFAS in our water, but it is already top of mind for people. It's very distressing for our residents, and Ridgewood Water is doing the best that it can with good planning to build the 12 treatment facilities in our 4 towns that are covered by Ridgewood Water. And then after that, I would say what might be coming up very quickly is affordable housing. Our next round of affordable housing starts in January. At that point, we have to turn over to the state our proposal for satisfying Ridgewood's obligation to provide affordable housing. We won't know what the state is requiring of us until they give us a number, and I expect that to be sometime this month or maybe even November even. But they give us a number, and then we come up with a proposal in January, and the timeline goes from there. We do have a planner who helped us in the last round, and I really like working with her. She's very knowledgeable, and I'm actually the point person for that because I'm on the planning board and on the council. So I know that it will certainly be top of mind for me.
That maybe leads into what would you say is one of the overarching reasons on why you are rerunning for council? But, obviously we discussed in the last election what some of your motivators are, but have those changed? What's your current kind of reason for getting up and putting in the hustle for this very consuming role?
I'd say 3 things. One, what I've learned being on the council for the last 4 years is that the input from residents here, the engagement is so sustained, so uplifting that I really enjoy working with the residents, and I want to continue doing that because they're the next generation. The people who work on these committees, they're going to take over when I'm gone. So their input and their learning is really important. And then second is certainly the improvement district that I would like to see come to fruition if the business community can shape it, formulate it, and go for it. I would really like to see our town reinvigorated in that way. And then, of course, I'm deeply invested in environmental conservation. Our Green Ridgewood committees, that is the Green Ridgewood Advisory Committee and the Green Team that works on our sustainability accreditation. These people are just so active. You may have been to the Earth Day Festival. Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair is the full title of it. In April every year, we have this festival in Van Nest Square to educate, engage people in Ridgewood and beyond. We have brought in, as I mentioned, the Columbia University students, and also we work with the high school students with their club. And there's so much that really falls to local government when it comes to the environment. to decarbonizing our use of fossil fuels and that sort of thing. These committees come up with all kinds of solutions. There is no one solution to the climate crisis, but it's here and we need to address it. Can't count on the federal government, can't count on the state government. It's really up to us. This is where governance is really close to home. It's what we do individually, and it's what we do as a municipality that is going to count. And flooding is such a big issue. You asked me what is the most pressing issue right now? It's flooding. It's mitigating our damages. It's preparing for the next storm. It's fortifying our infrastructure, all that kind of thing. And I am forming a residential flood advisory committee composed of 2 homeowners who have been flooded by the Hohokus Brook, 2 people who have been flooded by the Saddle River, 2 homeowners who have been flooded by stormwater, and a representative from Green Ridgewood. Their voices really count. Their experiences are important. Their suggestions for solutions should be heard. And they need to help us understand what it'll mean when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers comes in here with their report. Is it really feasible? How fast can we execute? They really need to be heard. So I'm looking forward to setting that up after the election.
That's great. And for listeners who are looking to learn more, where should they go to learn more about the platform and some of the things you're running on?
You can go to the League of Women Voters 411, and you tell them what town you live in, and they have set up various questions and answers from the candidates who are running. Also, the Patch recently asked us a bunch of questions, and I expect their publication will come out pretty soon. So tonight we will be having a debate of all 4 candidates, and it will be recorded. So anybody can go to YouTube, or I think on FiOS it's channel 34. It will be recorded, and that's going to be very interesting. I always loved it because it's really democracy up close and personal. It's your neighbors talking. So if you can watch that, it's really very enlightening. Also, my website for the purpose of my campaign is Perron for Council. And I also have a Facebook page that changes every day, with new stuff. Oh, there are all kinds of things on the Facebook page that are really interesting. Today, there's a spot from Jim Stroker, the teacher from Ridgewood High School, who so many of our kids had in gym class. Those are the basic outlets to find out. But you can call me up and talk to me anytime, and I'm happy to speak with people. I might be knocking on your door because I am going door to door and handing out literature and answering people's questions. I often ask residents, how do you think Ridgewood can improve? And it's just amazing the variety of suggestions that I get from that in terms of answers.
I'm wondering how many people ask you about parking. Can you go into that a little bit? One of our questions here was specific about that. Does the council feel the investment in parking police have benefited the village? And they also want to know, have the revenues increased so much to make these efforts worthwhile? So what is your opinion on that?
They are our parking enforcement officers. They're not police. Though they are supervised by the police, they are not police officers. But their presence, I think, just even their driving around, alerts people that you can't just park wherever you feel like parking. It's not a free-for-all. We do have to maintain public safety. No, you can't park right in front of Haagen-Dazs. That is a corner. You will be hit from behind, and people can't make U-turns in the middle of Chestnut Street. And there are just so many haphazard things that happen downtown. The parking enforcement officers, PEOs as we call them, do enforce safety. These things are important and they are necessary. Unfortunately, we do have to pay off our garage, so that dictates the price of parking per hour. And we are paying off an $11 million bond that was used to build the parking garage. We built the parking garage because the merchants asked for it, begged for it. year after year after year. And unfortunately, it opened in the middle of the shutdown. So it has been a problem. The parking enforcement officers are also, going back to them, are important up on the parking deck, because we do have kids who horse around and want to be skating within the driveway of the parking garage, and that's just too dangerous. So yes, I think they do serve an important function.
Pam, who are some of the local leaders that you respect and why?
I'll start with Sheila Brogan. She is so knowledgeable, so dedicated. I think she's been working on the Board of Ed for 25 years. And even in addition to that, she is one of the co-founders of Age Friendly Ridgewood. And that's so important for retirees and people in town. There are many things that Age Friendly Ridgewood does to improve the lives of our elders, and that she continues to do this year after year is just amazing to me. Her energy is so sustained, and she's always courteous, and she's my role model, always courteous. She does not yell, get angry, and she's so available to the public. I would say she's definitely a role model for me.
So Pam, that segues perfectly into our next question. How do you define respectful campaigning, and what steps are you taking to hold yourself accountable for maintaining integrity throughout this campaign?
Well, my first ground rule in campaigning is that I will not disparage an opposing candidate. That's important. And my second ground rule is to listen to what residents and other stakeholders need, say, and complain about. I just have to listen in a way that lets them know I hear them. And that means I better be able to say it back to them. I better be able to let them know that I've heard and fully understood what they have said. And then I want to take action on it if I can, particularly because right now I'm an incumbent. And then if I can move on to governance for a moment, I think it is important to govern without arrogance. When I ran the first time, I was appalled at the way the Village Council had treated the trustees of the Board of Ed in moving the election to the spring. That was in total disregard of their needs, their preferences, and it was completely inappropriate. It's important to hear all the stakeholders. So that's basically, it dictates how I campaign and how I govern.
We've covered a lot of ground here, and I still have a couple of questions from our listeners, and that is regarding the athletic fields. Someone wants to know about sunshades over some of the fields because it's getting hotter and hotter. And is there any plan to put any shading over our water fountains or any of the fields? And the second part of that question is, there's a lot of fighting over the Shedler property and the size of the baseball field. So this listener wants to know if some sports are being supported more than others. So what are your thoughts on those two things?
Shades over fields. Well, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that before. Shades over water fountains. That's an interesting idea. And I do know that the Parks Department is considering more shades at Graydon, especially where they recently had to take down a tree because it was leaning and hazardous. As to Shedler, that was bought 15 years ago, and it has been an eyesore ever since. I would love to see it made into a field. We definitely have a need for more playing fields. That is indisputable, particularly since so many of our fields are in the floodplain. The Brookside Field, the high school field, Stevens Field, Maple Field. So we have a number of fields, but you have to subtract those when it rains. And our kids need to be out playing. It's important for their growth, for their futures, for their social life. And it's not just our kids, it's adult athletes as well. We need more fields. We need more playing fields. I am absolutely convinced of that fact. At Shedler, I think that it should be a grass field, and probably a large grass field, and hopefully multi-purpose. The idea of artificial turf, I think, is premature and also risky. Risky from a public health standpoint, and definitely a contributor to global warming. If I start with public health first, the prior type of artificial turf that used crumb rubber has been studied, and the American Pediatrics Association came out against it as being detrimental to children's health. So for that reason, I wouldn't go for crumb rubber. Councilwoman Winograd and I have met with several companies that provide artificial turf, and we have talked to them about alternative fill other than crumb rubber. The problem with that, as the Mount Sinai School of Medicine has pointed out, those alternative fills have not been studied. So we don't know what the effect on human health is or ecology downstream when that fill gets carried away by stormwater. I think it's a risk I can't impose on our populace. And so I am dead set against artificial turf for that reason. And then as for the environment, it's undeniable that when you put in a plastic sheet over the earth, it generates a lot of heat, reflected heat from the sun, and that in turn, the radiation creates off-gassing of volatile organic compounds and semi-volatile organic compounds. And then they are also manufactured with PFAS, the forever chemicals, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which we're spending millions upon millions of dollars to get rid of in our drinking water. And the companies can't guarantee that they will manufacture artificial turf that has no PFAS in it or on it, because PFAS is undeniably everywhere. And if they can't give us that guarantee, I don't want to be like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where they thought they were contracting for PFAS-free artificial turf, but once it was installed, well, lo and behold, it had PFAS in it. So they felt snookered, and I don't want that to happen in Ridgewood. So that's where I stand on a field at Shedler.
Thank you. And then let's move on to our last question here. It's regarding e-scooters and bikes. There seem to be younger and less able riders in town as these devices have proliferated. Are there any plans in motion to regulate the age or skill of the drivers of these electronic scooters and bikes?
That's a good question for our police chief. We did prohibit the use of e-vehicles in our park, but whether they go on to our streets and sidewalks, we haven't gotten to that point yet. I know that Paris and New York are regulating more and more of the e-vehicles, and I am dismayed. As an older person walking on a sidewalk, I'm afraid of them. So I think that is an issue that we need to address in the near future.
So our final comment from one of our listeners echoes exactly how I feel. They say, please also remember to thank the council for their very productive leadership lately. I think they're doing a great job. It's good to have more cooperation in town again, and things really seem to be getting done. Much appreciated.
That's really nice. It really shows that people are watching and seeing what's going on in town. They're invested in our community. I've actually noticed something that really strikes me as new and different, and that is people who complain a lot now. We take their complaints to the village manager and we hammer out a solution. They feel heard. They know we're listening. They feel respected, as they should be. And the next thing I see is that they're applying to our advisory committees. They're signing up for the Citizen Safety Advisory Committee or for CBDAC or for Green Ridgewood, because they see that's where they can have a voice, a continued voice, and they can be part of the solution. They can help our village. And that's so gratifying. Really, I find it thrilling.
Thank you, Pam, for all you do for our village, and best of luck on this election.
Thank you. And with your help, I am going to pick up the phone and call up the police chief right now and talk to him about e-scooters.
Excellent. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Bye-bye.